Woman, who are you looking for? Jesus of Nazareth? He is not here, he is risen. The Gospel does not speak really about the resurrection of Jesus. It speaks more about the woman. The pious woman who went running to the tomb that very early morning because they cannot perform the ritual of embalming and ready Jesus for his burial. So they were waiting for the morning after the Sabbath is over so they can go and embalm Jesus with spices and make him ready to be buried. But while they are discussing all this on their way to the tomb, they looked up and they saw that the stone, which was huge, was removed from the entrance. And when they come and enter, they found nothing but a young man telling them what I just told you in the quotation. Go and tell Peter and his disciples, the Lord is risen. My dear people, today is the one of the greatest day of all Christians. If not for this day, we have no salvation. We read today from the Vigil, from the book of Genesis, we read from the Exodus and also from the Ezekiel, how God in his plan of salvation prepare and form and create and make possible for his Son to come into this world. I always told you that the world was created not for you or for me, but for his Son. He created for his Son because he loved him so much that he wants to give him everything. And then in order to show us how much he loves us, he created him in our own image, in the same image of Adam. As St. Paul so said very beautifully, all of us died in Adam, and all of us in the second Adam, in Jesus, we have life. And today, as we meditate on the readings today, the readings of the Vigil, we see that everything that God created is beautiful. And that's why many times you hear the Holy Father speak about the creation, and that we need to conserve creation, because God created creation for the service of each one of us. And we need not to delude it. We don't need to disrupt what God creates so beautiful. In fact, every time the scripture said, and God looks what he did, and it was good. And then we go in that second reading, which is the third reading in the ritual of Exodus. That is the greatest story in the life of the chosen people. You know the story how the chosen people, because of the famine, and Joseph who was taken away from them, and how he now become second in command after Pharaoh, how he was feeding the people, not only the Egyptian but also the surrounding area. And knowing this, the people of Israel went to Joseph and asked for ration. And while he was there, he revealed to them that he is their brother. And they brought Jacob, that means their father, and all the 12 children together with their wives and grandchildren, and they settled in Egypt for 450 years. When a Pharaoh arrived at the throne, and he did not know Joseph, that means he does not have no idea where the Jews come from. Have no respect for them because they don't think that they were somebody. The little they know that one of them was one of the ruling governor. And we know that after this 450 years, they were treated like slaves. They prayed to God, and God selected Moses. And to make it short, after Moses was sent to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh refused many times, then God said to Moses, the last one is going to be the finishing line. Go and procure a lamb. Make sure to have it on the tent, and on the 14th day, the lamb has to be without no blemish. Can be goat and can be a lamb. And you kill it. And with the blood, you put blood on the post of every entrance of the Hebrews. And you have to eat it in a certain way. Standing, with the staff in your hands, in a rush, like ready to take for flight. And that very night, the angel of death arrived in Egypt, and every house that does not have the sign of the blood, he entered and killed the firstborn of sheep, cattle, and humans. In fact, even the successor of Pharaoh, his son, was killed that night. Pharaoh was so upset that he wanted them out of his territory, and although he sent them, he changed his mind and he went after them. How beautiful is that song, eh? Let us sing to the Lord, because he has done marvelous things. The chariots and the charioteers of Pharaoh, we saw them with our eyes, all drowned in the Red Sea. And then of course we read from Ezekiel, that is speaking about the water. Ezekiel was prophesied about that water that comes from the temple, and that water is going to give so much life to anyone that water comes to. And that is the reference to our baptism. We know that today is a very special day when we are going to bless the water, that water that sometimes is used for baptisms, that water that can be taken home to be sprinkled, that water that we bless ourselves when we enter the church. And why we bless water? Because that water reminds us of our own baptism. We were immersed in that water. And we were immersed in that water so that we die to ourselves and rise from that water to be a new creation. And that's why St. Paul today speaks to us about that issue. If we have died with Christ, and we believe that we have died with Christ to our sin in the waters of baptism, we also believe that we will rise with Him. That is the promise of every Christian. We die with Christ, we rise with Him. First we have to carry the cross. First we have to be sentenced to death. And then after we died, then we experience the resurrection. And today this is what we are going to do after this homily. We are going to renew our own baptism vows. When we were little, many of them except Martha, we received baptism when we are infants. And the parents stood up for us and saying, we want, they said to the priest or deacon, whoever was the minister of the sacrament, we want our child to receive the faith. What do you ask of the church? Baptism, faith. And the parents respond to the priest that they will vouch for their own faith, and they are going to do the best they can to hand it down to their children. And their children are going to be the one who are going to make a decision when they are about 14, 15 years of age. When they in front of the bishop or delegate of the bishop, they are going to confirm the vows of baptism. That's why it's called confirmation. It's going to confirm the vows of our baptism. And that's why the young adults say to the bishop, as the renewal of faith, that they want to continue what their parents have given them. And this is what the celebration is all about today. Christ died for us and rose for our salvation in order that He will give us the pledge of everlasting life. And so as we continue celebration tonight, I ask you in a very special way, when we come to renew the vows, don't say, I do is like they don't know what you are doing. I do means I commit myself again to the waters of baptism. I commit myself to adore and love God. I commit myself to reject Satan and all his works from my life. Because during these 40 days of Lent, that's what we have been doing. We exercise to let go of sin from our lives. And that's what the idea of penance was, is not to become skinny. Penance, the idea of penance means that I am going to challenge myself, to challenge this flesh, because the more you give this flesh, the more he wants, and retreat from this thing that is attractive to the flesh, so I can give totally and completely myself to God. And when the tempter comes, I can resist him. I can be resisting him and not let him overtaking me. So again, I would like to wish all of you a happy, blessed Easter. That Easter that you began at your baptism and today you are going to renew it. That Easter that now we celebrate it in mystery, in a mirror, St. Paul said. But then when God calls us home, we celebrate it face to face with Christ. We are going to see the risen Christ, not as a glimpse in a statue or a picture. No, we see Him as He is, our Savior. I again ask you in a very special way that this sacrament of baptism will be our goal in life, so that we can not only consecrate ourselves to Christ, but also through the sacraments that we receive after baptism, that will aid us to continue to live what we have promised and what we have confirmed with our faith.